Hello, welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Alex Corman cannot join us today, so it will be myself, Matthew Fox, and Erin McGowan talking about The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episodes 9 and 10. Erin,
10,
we are
11.
getting 10, 11. Okay, I'm going to fix that, and then, well, you know what? You all who see the whole video get to see how the sausage was made. Are you sure it was 10 and 11? I
Yep.
thought for sure we watched...
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Star Wars, The Bad Batch. I believe you're right. I'm just confused because I think I just posted episode 9.
Yeah, which would make this 10 and 11, right?
Yes. Oh, and I said 9 and 10. Okay, now I understand.
We got there.
I thought I was correct. I was wrong. There's a general rule in life. If you just start from the place that you are wrong and Erin is right, then things will generally go better for you.
I agree.
So,
I second that. Oh,
unless
I'm wearing a
she's
Star
smashed.
Wars shirt today.
I like it. Little Grogu action.
It's Christmas themed, but it's all I got. So,
Well, there you go. That looks terrible. 10, 11.
yay.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Today, myself and Erin McGowan are talking about Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11. Erin, so good to have you back. We missed you last time. We will get your thoughts on Episode 9 and our bonus content for members. But let's kind of just jump right in. Episodes 10 and 11, what'd you think?
Oh my gosh. First of all, it's great to be back. Alex, you are missed, but happy to tap in this week. They gave me a feeling that I have not felt since certain episodes of the Clone Wars.
Wow.
Like certain episodes that I have rewatched so many times to make it hurt less, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the opening scene of episode 10, where we see that little baby and his mother, and they're like a owl humanoid species.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm gonna throw up. Like, I'm gonna fucking throw up. I feel horrible. Like, I'm already so upset about this. And then like the vase flew, and I was like, the baby's force sensitive and something bad's about to happen.
Yeah, that was really rough.
That was
to me, there's nothing more painful than watching an adult who's trying but is constricted in what they can do have a child tell them that you lied to me. Like, that moment just broke me. And I feel bad for Emery. I also think she deserves it because she is lying to these kids. And
Yep.
Seeing it all through her eyes and seeing her come to understand just how horrible this is and how horrible what she's been a part of.
Mhm.
Her conversation with Namaste of like, yeah, this, she had to allow this to help protect Omega. But yeah, all of it's awful. It was just heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to do a quick episode recap, or do you want me to?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, episode 1, we open up on this, what I assume is a mother and a baby. I guess it's never really clarified, but it really does appear to be a single parent, which made it hurt all the worse because this parent is doing everything to keep their child from being noticed, and it just doesn't work. So the child uses the force to like get its little stuffy back, and somebody sees it. They call up a bounty hunter. Bane rolls up, stuns the mom, tests the baby for, the M count, and then takes the baby with Toto and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
In this like bassinet that's like, if you could imagine like the little carrier that Grogu's in, but like scientific and evil. And like it's a cage. Like it looks like a cage. It doesn't look like a bassinet.
Well,
but
it's fully covered for one thing. Like Grogu's can be covered and armored, but he can open it up. This one can't be opened like that.
Yeah.
She's got like a little entryway. And what a great way to bring in Cad Bane. Like, we knew he was going to show up because of the trailer, and we'd all talked about how much we loved him, but I didn't have a like, oh my God, it's Cad Bane. I'm so excited. It was like nothing else would have. I can't think of another character other than like a Force user or something who them appearing on screen would make me think, oh no, these kids are really, really in trouble. And it was
Mm,
just so perfect because it didn't have that fan service moment in the slightest. It was just,
mhm.
yep, Cad Bane's here. We're all screwed.
Yeah, it's just like I had written down in my notes, like, damn, after all this time, like Bane is still just hunting children. Like, we all get so distracted in how cool he is, his cowboy style. Like, there's some episodes where he's more of an anti-hero, or like, the box episodes in the Clone Wars where he's not really the villain. Um, but he is. That's what he is he's a villain. Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
care. And
Yeah.
he's just there for the money. And I think, like, yeah, and he's just so flippant about all of it. Like,
Hmm.
he pays the guy who gave him the tip. He goes, "Thanks for the tip," and just chucks a bunch of credits at him. They just scatter on the floor. And
Yeah.
then they go to meet up with the Empire, and Emery is asking a couple questions about, "Oh, how many children have you done this with?" And Bane's like, "Let's just say I'm good at my job." And then she asks, "What planet did this child come from?" And he said to her, "Asking questions like this reveals more than you think."
Yeah.
Or, like,
Which is
tells
such a
me more
line.
than you think. Such a
Yeah.
line. Absolute bars. Um, so yeah, that's first episode. We see Emery takes over the mantle of head scientist in place of Nala Se, goes into the vault, sees that they're in the vault. They have these children that are force sensitive children, and they're forcing them to do some sort of busy work while
Hmm.
they're kind of testing them and keeping them. And they test their blood every day for midichlorians. Um,
Right.
and one of the children introduces herself, and Dr. Hemlock is like, or Emery asks her name, and Dr. Hemlock is like, "Dr. Card, do not personally attach yourselves to these specimens."
Yeah. Don't think of them
Like,
as
don't.
children. He uses that word specimen specifically.
Yeah, he's like, "Don't talk to them."
Yeah.
Um, you looked like you had something to say.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just like disheartening. And then one of the kids tries to escape, gets stunned. Emery is upset by this. She goes and talks to Nala Se, and she's like, "What the hell, you knew?" And Nala Se is like, "Yeah, I did, but now you know, and now you can do something about it." And Emery's
Hmm.
like, "No, I can't." And Nala Se said, "Yes, you can." Well, because that's the thing is, Nala Se said, like, "Now you've taken my place as head scientist. So what are you going to do about it?"
Yeah.
It wasn't like you can do something. She said, "What are you going to do about it?" Um, So yeah, that just the whole episode was pretty heavy. We saw actually Governor Tarkin hop in for a little
Hmm.
cameo and say, "Hemlock, what the hell? Nobody sees the products of what you're doing. You're taking so much money. Like, we're gonna pull your funding if you don't come out with results soon."
Right.
And so the heat is turned up on Hemlock. He's stressing. He calls the Shadow Trooper and he's like, "Yo, where are things at? Like, we need
Hmm.
this. We need Omega back now." And the Shadow Trooper mentions tracking down a Trandoshan and getting some information out of her about a pirate that the batch used to like socialize with. So
Right.
basically he then tracks Fee. Let's see, is there anything I'm missing from the first episode? Yeah, so when Emery sees that the new specimen they've brought is a literal baby, like
Hmm.
infant, she's like shocked and horrified.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because the baby had this little, like, stuffy that it was super attached to and really loved, and the baby was sleeping when it got to Tantus, and it shows, like, Bane's empty carrier with the stuffy in it, and
Yeah.
so then it's, like, just the baby in this, like, cold room, and Emery is clearly affected by that in a negative way, as she should be, like, "Fucking took you long enough, girly."
Right.
Um But she's clearly upset by that and then ends up going and finding Omega's. Oh, wait, yeah, let's talk about the moment you mentioned. So, a little
Well,
boy tries.
let's just finish the episode summary and then we'll get into it.
Okay, both episodes right now or just episode 1?
Just the first one.
Okay. Um, yeah, the episode ends with Emery going and pulling out Omega's, like, straw doll that she had made when she was on Tantus.
Yeah.
And then it shows the next day in the vault where the specimens are, these 3 children. The lights turn on, the doors open, and outside of the door of one of the children's like rooms is the little doll. And
Yeah.
she like picks it up and like kind of plays with it a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's
It
kind
is
of go ahead.
very heavy. It is a very heavy episode. And we're gonna have a lot to talk about it. Sorry. First, I do want to say a quick note. For those of you who like this podcast, that should say the Star Wars Generations podcast. I am newly creating these graphics for you. But for anybody who likes the Star Wars if you're enjoying this podcast, let us know what you think. You can find us on social media. Just search for Ethical Panda or Ethical Panda 77 on all the different places that you can find it. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, our website, The Ethical Panda. You can also look for Star Wars Generations, and you'll find us there as well. And if you're enjoying this content and you want more, please think about becoming a member. It's only $5 a month, $55 a year. And for that, you get bonus content at the end of every episode. You get bonus episodes. Our second book club episode should be coming soon. We were planning to record at the end of March. One of our people got sick, so we're having to kind of scramble and reset things, but it will be coming soon. And of course, you just get to support the podcast, which is an awesome thing to be able to do. So please let us know what you think of these episodes. We'd love to have your feedback. We can discuss it on air. Please become a member, and back to the conversation. So, Erin, what did you think of seeing like exactly what Hemlock and the rest of them were doing with these kids?
It's just sad. Like it's just fucked up. Like, and it made me think about the episodes in the Clone Wars where we saw Bane, kidnapping force-sensitive children.
Yeah.
And once Rebels came out and that was all kind of a thing, I thought to myself, I think a lot of us thought, oh, he was getting those children to make them inquisitors. He wanted to train force-sensitive children to be his like war dogs. And now we're seeing that it probably wasn't that at all. Like it was genuinely he wanted them for experimentation.
Yeah.
And not
I mean, it
even
could be
to use
both.
them for abilities. It could be both, true. Like some of the inquisitors could have been experimented on before they became inquisitors.
Mhm.
I guess that's a whole thing, whether it's Vader
Yeah.
involved or Hemlock Sidious involved.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like it just feels so bad because these kids, they just keep saying like the little girl. She
Mhm.
introduces herself as Eva. And she says, where's like Mistress Nala say? Like she hasn't come back.
Mhm.
And Emery just, I don't remember what she said, but something like, oh, she doesn't like work here anymore, basically.
Right.
And the little girl's like, well, she told me that she would like get back to me. She would like tell me. And Emery's like, tell you what? And Eva goes, she was going to tell me when we get to go home.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to go home. And so it becomes very clear that not only does the Empire, and Hemlock had said this, Emery says something to him about why children? Like, why not adults? And he said, there aren't many adults left with these, like,
Yeah.
capabilities. And children are much easier to submit, basically.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's intentional targeting of children.
Yeah.
Which is just gross.
There were a couple
And
things in that hit me really hard. The first was, I think in fandom, a comment that gets made sometimes somewhat like facetiously, because this is kind of an overstatement of what probably happens, but where they like, hey, we're being critical, is the idea of like, the Jedi kidnapping force sensitive babies. We know that's not how it actually happens, that the parents do generally consent, and you can get into questions of like, does the child consent, or how
yeah.
much can the parents actually consent when it's this, huge overwhelming force and things like that that's coming in, the Jedi and all that. And it kind of feels like this episode is sort of like, wait. You think the Jedi kidnap force babies? Let me show you what kidnapping force babies actually looks like. And so that was one of my first thoughts. But also just all the things you said about how hard it hits. For me, one of the most affecting moments is showing that not only is this happening in this lab, But all of the anti-Jedi propaganda has really spread everywhere because you hear, in the like market area where the little child, I thought she was a cat humanoid race.
Okay.
But I think you may well be right about owl. Cat
Could
being
be
just a little
both.
funny given the predictions we said about why is it that Asajj Ventress is still alive, but different story there. But as they're trying to sneak away, one person says to another, "Oh, do you think she's cursed? Those gifted kids." And he's clearly
Mhm.
talking about, the people who have these force abilities. And just the fact that already they're talking about those kids as how dangerous they are and how scary they are and
Yeah.
how, someone this person basically is dropping a dime on a baby. But
Mhm.
and, I imagine they're gonna get some financial payment out of it, but it seems also that everyone is just like, "Yeah, this person's a concern to us." And,
Mhm.
you know, when I think about how many different times throughout history when people have tried to, make some other group, the group everybody should hate, it goes this deep. And you can get people to even hate little babies and toddlers, and that's how just disturbing it is. And so that hit me really hard, as well as it is horrible that this exists and it's upsetting that this exists. But I do feel like this was another important part of the story for me because, Order 66 and then the hunting down of the remaining Jedi after Order 66 helps to answer the question of what happened to all the Force users. But then
Mhm.
the question also remains, more people are still being born Force sensitive. What happens to them? And this again is answering that and is showing like this is what's happening. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of, Force sensitive babies, don't get caught by the Empire and probably just their powers never develop because they never get any training. And so this ability is just dying out as the Emperor wants. But so seeing all of that in this episode, it hit really hard. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where Emery's gonna go now because I think that line, it's kind of like that same moment we got from Crosshair, that same moment we got from Agent Collis, where we just know like they're not gonna be able to be okay with this anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in our next 4 episodes here.
Mhm.
Um,
One of
yeah,
the
it's
things
just rough. Go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to add, you were talking about how in this episode the Force kids are just kind of doing busy work. If I understood correctly, what they part of what they said is that they can't do any of the next level of experimentation without Omega specifically, because
Mhm.
there's something in Omega's blood that helps like the blood molecules of the different people bond together to be able to replicate midichlorian counts. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, in some ways that makes it even more horrible is that it's not even that they are actively working on these specimens. They're just holding them,
Yeah.
for the day when they get Omega back.
Yeah. That's true, I didn't fully put that together.
Mhm.
It's just yeah. And, I wanna talk about, Jax, like, the member who tried to escape,
Yep.
the specimen, I guess, as Hemlock would say. Um,
Person. I think we can say person or child.
yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, so basically, he always was side-eyeing, keeping a lookout at things, saw that
Mhm.
Hemlock used the data pad to get out of the vault, and then when Emery came to do his tests that evening, um, he grabbed the data pad, shoved her into the wall, and ran across the, um, area, the vault, I guess, to
Yeah.
the other door, but somebody from the one of the scientists on the upper levels saw him, sounded the alarm. He obviously could not leave. And then the door opened and commando troopers came out. And he like backs up and they have their guns out. And Emery says, like, no use, like, no need for guns. Like, put that away. Like, I
Right.
have this under control. Like, I have this handled. Like, put that away. Like, this is a child. Um, and then the little boy who we find out is Jax. Jax sees that as an opportunity to try to like run past the commandos. Obviously, it does not work, and he immediately gets stunned, which the other children see and are deeply traumatized and concerned by.
Right.
Um,
And even when the Imperial Commandos people say to each other, their commander says, "Set your guns on stun."
Mhm.
There's no sense of like, because these are children, we don't want to hurt them. It's these are specimens that we don't want to damage.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because Emery then said to him, like, "Your measures are too severe, like, that was uncalled for." And he's like,
Right.
"I was following protocol for capturing an escaped specimen."
Yeah.
And it's just yeah. And so then Eva is talking to Emery a little bit later, and she asks, like, "Is Jax, like, in trouble? Like, is he gonna get in trouble for this? Is he gonna be punished?" And Emery's like, "No, like, he's not in trouble, like, he'll be fine, like, you'll see him tomorrow." Um, and Eva says, again, something about he just wanted to go home, like, we just all wanna go home, like,
Yeah.
he didn't mean anything bad by it, he just wants to go home. Um, and then the next day, we come to find out that the protocol for and test subject trying to escape is that they are put into isolation for, I think it was 2 days?
That sounds
3
right.
days?
Yeah.
2 or 3 days? Um, basically just, like, as a punishment. And then Emery goes to do Eva's tests, and she's, like, really upset, won't look at Emery, doesn't, like, talk to her, isn't, like, the same little girl that we saw kind of the day before.
Right.
And Emery asks, like, "Oh, is something wrong?" And Eva goes, like you said at the top of the episode, "You lied to me."
Yeah.
Like a child telling an adult, like, "You lied to me."
Well, it's like what Hemlock said when he says that the kids are easier to control. Part of it's probably because if they're adults, then they probably have actually understandings of their force powers and can use them.
Mhm.
But also because kids will believe you when you say something like, "No, no, no, you're going to be fine. We're just doing this for a couple days. Oh, your mom's going to come back soon. We're just keeping you for your safety." Like,
Yeah.
the younger
That's
someone is, the easier it is to make them believe that. And to me, one of the first gut punch moments was when Eva first goes up to her and says, "Yeah, like, can you answer that question?" Nalase never answered. "When do I get to go home?" Because clearly she still believes that she's gonna get
yeah.
home, and you can see in that moment that Emery knows she's probably not, and she just
Mhm.
can't answer that question.
Yeah.
So here we don't get many of these, but every now and then we get an episode of The Bad Batch that doesn't involve The Bad Batch at all.
Nope.
How do you feel about these kind of episodes?
I honestly kinda love it. Like, I do love
Yeah,
just, like, lore episodes, especially the way they've used them this season with The Bad
yeah,
Batch, like, it has been so pointed and intentional, like,
mhm,
it's not just a side quest, it's not a side story, like, these episodes are the meat, they're extremely important information that they just can't show us through the story of our main characters. And that's
yeah,
something that I loved so much about the Clone Wars, is that there wasn't, quote, quote, "main characters." Like, of course there was, we have Anakin,
yeah,
Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, Cody, um, R2-D2, and assorted others. But
yeah,
every episode or every little set of episodes was usually with a different cast of characters, which was just so refreshing and such a good way to build a world. And I like that they've gone back to that even within the smaller view or smaller lens of like
agreed.
a family-based show.
I totally agree, and I think it's so good that we're getting away from the idea of like, oh, your main characters have to always be on screen for like half the episode or something like that, or whatever the rules used to be. Rules or guidelines, whatever it is, because like you can have a good episode where parts of it are happening on Tantus and parts of it are happening with our heroes and all that.
Mhm.
But I think part of what made this thing so powerful is that we were never allowed to look away.
Yeah.
We were never given the chance to go, okay, I know that hurts. Don't worry, we're gonna get back to our Bad Batch buddies, and look, here they are bantering with each other as they work with Fee to try and figure something out, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. We don't even see the Trandoshan, who they mentioned, who I assume has to be
It's
I'm
Sid.
blanking on Sid. Yeah, it's of course it's Sid. We don't even see her get captured because
Yeah.
I think they very wisely knew if we just stay with this story and don't let the audience look away from what's happening to these kids, it's just going to hit that much harder. And of course, it ends with what becomes a perfect segue back to our story. With it ends with Hemlock hearing about that his clone assassin has found where Fee and the rest of them are, and then him sending the assassin in to try and take out Fee and the Bad Batch, and that of course launches us into episode 11, which we'll talk about in a second.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just thought it was, I don't want too many of them, but if every now and then an episode like this, or of any of these shows, is not about the name characters in the title, but is about something
Mhm.
else, but it's still very relevant. I love it. I'm totally happy with it.
And see, that's why I loved Book of Boba Fett so much, and why that
Yeah,
episode that was just The Mandalorian didn't bother me,
yeah,
because
I
it
agree
was
with it.
information that was vital to the end of our story.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah,
It
I
it
just
bothered me
also
only
appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I keep cutting off. Yeah. That's right. It bothered me only in that there were a lot of the parts of the story of Boba Fett that I wished we had spent more time in, specifically his
Very true.
relationships with the um um
Tuskens?
with the Tuskens. But yeah, if you told me like we have to cut something, that's not the story I would have wanted to cut first. So because I thought it
Yeah.
was great. And yeah, to me, like, oh, it's called the shook. No, any episode I get of any TV show in the Star Wars universe is going to be about Star Wars. And I don't
Mhm.
want like this only to be about this character. Like, it's a whole connected universe. Show all that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about episode 11 next. And I can try doing a summary of this one.
Go for it.
See if I can find it. All right, so let's talk about episode 11, and I'm going to do a summary. This summary is going to be a lot shorter, but we can just kind of fill in with things, and I'm just taking this straight from the Wikipedia page, which does pretty good episode summaries. The clone assassin infiltrates Fee's ship during a checkup and hacks her navigation computer, thus learning about Omega's whereabouts on Pabu. Just as the Bad Batch prepares to leave the planet, the assassin arrives and confirms their presence, destroys the Marauder. Let's raise a glass to that wonderful ship. It's been with us for a while.
Yeah.
And calls an Imperial strike team in. With their means of escape cut off, the rest of the batch tries to evade their pursuers while Hunter leaves to steal a gunship. After Hunter falls, Omega decides to surrender herself both to spare the people of Pabu and to enable the batch to trace her to Tantus. Crosshair's attempt to put a tracker fails, and the assassin leaves with Omega.
Which we all saw coming.
Yeah,
Crosshair saw it coming.
he did. And
He
to
hated this
me,
plan.
my favorite, he hated the plan, but he went along with it pretty much without question.
Mhm.
And to me, my favorite line in this episode, and I think maybe my favorite line this season, because it just hit so powerfully, was as she's getting ready to do that, and he's sort of starting to protest, she says, "Focus on the mission, Crosshair. This is so much bigger than I am."
Mhm.
And we've always kind of known that for her, this isn't about herself. This is about her larger belief in the mission.
Mhm.
And during the war, the clones certainly believed that as well. But I think they've been very clear for most of the show, and I think with good reason, that their mission hasn't been to become part of the rebellion. Their mission isn't to defeat the Empire. Their mission is to protect each other, and to keep each other safe. And so at first it was to try and get Crosshair back and to get the chips out of them, and then to keep Omega safe, and then to deal with Crosshair, and then now it's to try and get everybody back together again. Like everything they've done, it's always been about rescuing Omega, rescuing Crosshair, getting rid of the chips, something regarding to that.
Mhm.
And you can see them more and more coming to this idea of, no, we actually need to get back into the larger fight. But like, I feel like what Rex said to them is now coming to a full culmination in this moment, where she says the mission is bigger than any of our individual safeties, and Crosshair
Mhm.
doesn't fight her. He just accepts it.
Mhm. One also, like, important thing I heard from that moment is she said to him, "This is my decision."
Mm-hmm.
And, like, yeah, as it is. Like, she may be, a child, but at this point, with everything she's been through and they've been through together, like, she deserves that respect. And she takes
Right.
it at this point. She's been fighting for it for 3 seasons. And she just decides, enough is enough. We can't stop this. We can't escape. And they're hurting. a lot of people, and I'm not willing to put them through that.
Right.
So as my decision, I will sacrifice myself. And I think it's weird because I do wonder if Hunter were there, if the same thing would have happened.
Mm.
Because as protective as Crosshair is, I think he respects Omega more as her own independent person. Or
Mhm.
maybe not respects her more, but sees her more as that. And I think Hunter is still very much sees her like as someone for him to care for, which is also true. Like neither side is wrong. Um,
Right.
but I just think her being with Crosshair was like the perfect
Mhm.
setup for that situation.
I think you're totally actually wait, is the hunter or Wrecker who gets hurt?
Wrecker's the one who's blown up at first.
Right.
Hunter falls into the ocean and then swims out
Right. But so it's Wrecker who's taken out on
at
the
the start of
stretcher.
the episode. Yep.
Yeah, I totally think you're right. And I think that, for Omega, a big part of what motivates her is seeing Wrecker and then quite possibly Hunter get hurt. Because I think it's one thing for everyone else to say, you're the most important. We're all going to put our lives on the line to protect you. That's
Mhm.
an incredible lot of pressure to put on someone,
Yeah.
especially when they have to start watch the people they love, the people who are part of their family, being badly hurt and possibly even losing their lives to protect you. Like, that's an awful thing to live with.
Mhm.
And so it makes a lot of sense that that's a big part of what pushes her over the edge of saying, like, we can't keep doing this. If if I'm the one endangering all these people, then I need to stop that. To me, the heartbreaking part is if her thought is better to risk my life than the life of all these people around me, then yeah, I understand her moral calculus. If, on the other hand, the thought is I have to be kept safe not because I'm special and great, but because if the Empire gets me, they can start cloning Force users, and now there's going to be thousands of Darth Vaders, and we're all completely fucked. Like,
Mhm.
then I think it's like, girl, I don't care how much you don't want people dying for you. Like, they're dying for the whole damn galaxy. Because
Yeah.
she doesn't realize,
That
I
would
think,
annihilate. Yeah.
yeah, her falling into the, I mean, obviously, like with any show that fits in the middle of an already established timeline, we know that doesn't happen, or at least if it
Mhm.
does, it gets cut off at some point. But I feel like if she knew that, it would be a lot harder. And I think that's another
Yeah.
way in which having that first episode helps because we, the audience, know that
Now
the
we know
Empire
it.
getting their hands on Omega again is real, real, real bad.
Mhm. Yeah, that is interesting because that's like something that was so great about last week's episode is that we had that like mislead almost, you know? Like
Yeah.
basically Ventress was like, I don't know exactly what you guys discussed on it. I haven't listened to the full episode yet. But Ventress was like, yeah, like from what I can tell, she's definitely not strong in the Force. I'd
Hmm.
say let's just say she's not at all and let's never talk about it again, basically.
Yeah.
Ventress is like, it's safer if she's not. There's no reason for her to be trained. She's not so powerful that she'll catch attention. She doesn't have barely any power.
Right.
And so to me, I mean, the batch already doesn't know why the Empire wants Omega so bad. But now to them, this M count thing that they heard mentioned was just some sort of a mislead. They don't think it's actually related to Omega because from the one expert and Force user that they've ever met post Order 66, according to her, Omega's not sensitive enough to be worth anything.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think if she did understand like what it was about, if it was about cloning Force users and using them for the Empire, of course it would be a harder decision and there'd be a lot more weighing on everyone, I mean, in that case.
Yeah.
But right now we have them in a situation where that's the furthest from what they think this could be about.
Right.
And so that was just like very interesting.
I want to ask you more about Asajj Ventress not being in this episode. But is there anything first you want to talk about in terms of this episode itself?
I mean, there was just so much. First of all, finally got Hunter. I think his hair was wet. It didn't make me feel any better.
Mm-hmm.
It just made me really sad.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Not quite the
Um,
first moment we'd hoped for.
it was not. It was depressing. I will say I appreciated how because Wrecker saw the bombs shortly before they went off, the ones that were on the Marauder, because he was going to be on the ship. He would have been 100% dead. But
Yeah.
he saw it out of the corner of his eye because, demolitions expert. He heard the beep
Mm-hmm.
and got the hell out of Dodge, but not before he grabbed Gonky.
Yeah.
And the two of them were launched off into the bay.
And that was such a nice moment, especially because Fee, and like, granted, I understand the social role that droids play in this universe,
Mhm.
and I wish that everyone treated droids a little better, but that's fine. But Fee, again, like, I'm not saying she's like a savage or something, but just this is how everyone is. She's dealing with a droid who, she opens the episode by being like, "Look, you should have gone in that green goo, like I told you. I don't care that it
Mhm.
burned you. I would have repaired you. Don't worry." And so,
Yeah.
just as a nice counterpoint to that, Wrecker being like, "I have a split second to survive this, and I'm going to pull Gonk out of the way too." I was like,
And take
"Wrecker,
Gonky with.
you are himbo extraordinaire. I like it."
Yes. Yes. Although, roll it back to episode 10, something very important we forgot that
What's
made
that?
me want to cry and end everything. Um, so the batch knows they're leaving before the Marauder is blown up, before they know that the Empire is onto them. Um, Omega is saying her goodbyes to Shep and Liana, and she decides to leave some stuff at their home. And Liana's like, "Oh, what did you want to leave here?" And Omega pulls out Tech's goggles.
Oh God, that was such a throat punch.
And then she pulls out her Lula, like the little toy that they made for her. And Liana said, like, "Are you sure you want to leave those here? Like, you don't want that with you?" And Omega said, "This is the first place that ever felt like home.
Yeah,
So now, like, a piece of us will always be here." And I think the wording was kind of important because she doesn't say it, but it's very implied that this is the first place we all called home. This is the
yeah,
first place like Tech felt at home.
yeah,
And now I'm emotional, but it's like the idea of like, I can't be here, but I know this place made him so happy. And I want part of him and I want part of us to be here together because this is where we were supposed to live happily ever after. And that's just like so, oh, it had me fucked up.
it hit so hard. Well, especially
Yeah.
because think about why are they on this planet to begin with, and who is her friend. Go all the way back to season 1 of the Clone Wars, which Clone Wars is a wonderful show. Season 1, like season 1 of many shows, including Star Trek: The Next Generation, is not always perfect by any means. But I think one of the most powerful episodes and one of the one that really sets the tone for the whole show happens in season 1. And it's where Rex and some of the others encounter a clone who,
The
kind of
hidden
got
enemy.
yeah, he got wounded during a fight and had like I think he had like amnesia and he got left behind.
Oh,
And
I'm thinking about a different one. Now I know what you're
okay,
talking about.
yeah, I'm not good with episode names, but he wound up like deciding I'm done with fighting. He was technically a deserter and was
Mhm.
like, no, I've met this woman, I've fallen in love, we're raising kids together. Rex, I don't want to go back. And it was, I think, one of the most powerful episodes of that early in the first season, or even late in this first season. It was one of the most powerful episodes of the first season and really starting this idea of, do clones have free will? Can a clone choose not to fight, to leave the army? What? Because Rex really he's not able to accept that at first. And he's like, no, 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 but we are clones. We have to fight. And he's really challenged by it. And
Mhm.
the fact that they've gone back to that planet a couple times now has felt so significant. And so it being to one of that clone's daughters that I think it's stepdaughters adopted, but either way, that Omega gives these gifts.
Oh, no, this
You
is
know,
a different planet.
is it?
Yeah. No, this planet is one that they found on their own to try to, like, lay low, and then there was, like, a hurricane episode here. 'Cause, Cut, which is the name of the clone, him and his family moved, and I think they just lost contact, like, cut ties for safety.
That's right, because there's a whole thing with the blockchains. They wanted to make it okay.
Yep. They were part
Well,
of the chain code episode.
To quote one of the best acts from early in Saturday Night Live history, never mind. None of that has the significance I
Never
thought, but
mind.
everything you said though is still very, very true. That the tech thing and all of that. Well, okay, so let me. I'm gonna for the you can hear my mistake here on the video, but for the audio, I'm gonna fix that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get you. Like knowing that connection with tech, knowing this is where they found a home. I think this is where Tech and Fee really first connected. Um, it has meant so much to them, and I think particularly because what was their other home before they had like an actual like on the ground home, it was the Marauder. And so having both of these things happen, having them to leave Pabu and the Marauder is destroyed at the same time is just really a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
There's so much
Double
more about this
whammy.
episode. Sorry, go ahead.
I just said double whammy.
There's so much more about this episode we could say, but I want to close by just asking one of the things that Alex and I talked about in our discussion of the last episode, episode 9, and we will talk to you about that in our bonus members episode, bonus members content. We said that we were in some ways kind of, a little disappointed that it had taken so long for Ventress to show up and things like this, but mostly after there being so much buildup, it felt like this wasn't Ventress joining the group for the rest of the season. This felt very much like Ventress was just going to be here for one episode. I'm curious, is that kind of what you thought? And if so, like, how did you feel about Ventress not being a part of this episode at all?
Oh, I mean, that's what I expected, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
when I saw her in the trailer, I kind of assumed this is a cameo situation. Like, I did not see a world in which she joins the batch to fight the Emperor. Like, that's not something
Right.
that I had kind of thought about, so that I wasn't really disappointed or surprised that she wasn't included in either of these episodes.
That's fair. That's fair. I will say, looking back on it now and thinking back about the conversation Alex had, I'm like, yeah, it's too bad. And we had a longer conversation there that we won't rehash, but about how, for me, I think it just confirms my I don't want to watch trailers thing, because I think it just,
Mhm.
having heard the trailers built up so many expectations. But I will say, having that first episode about the kids, like halfway through the episode, I was like, Ventress who? So I think I
Mhm.
didn't, if we'd immediately gone to Omega and the Batch and it wasn't Ventress, I think it would have felt like much more of a letdown. But instead, having this thing, and especially because I think like I would bet large amounts of money that as part of the effort to eventually get Omega back and go to Mount Tantus and all this, Ventress is going to be one of the people the Bad Batch goes to and says, "We need your help." Like,
Yeah.
so I don't think she's gone forever. I think that's just going to be a mid-season and then shows up at the very end.
Yeah, I think that's very possible that, like, they reconnect, she helps in some way.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Erin, thank you as always so much to our. Nope.
I got one last thing for this episode.
One last thing.
Um, I just wanna put it out there, I am still very, very, what would you say, excited about the Shadow Trooper, perchance? Like, he is just so slay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really snatched. Also, this season, every episode, Hunter gets more snatched, so don't think I haven't been seeing that. I haven't been seeing that tiny little Dorito waistline. Anyways,
So,
um
for those of us, certainly not myself, who's very down with the Gen Z lingo, but for those in our listeners who are not, can you define snatched?
Oh, yeah, it typically means, like, I mean, it's like a fucked up body standard, obviously, but it's
Mm-hmm.
the idea of, like, a very thin waist, and then, like, for men, it's, like, broad shoulders, thin waist. For women, it's, like, broader hips, thin waist,
Right. So it's not like
But
just
it's
being
also
super thin
just
overall. It's the like thin waist and then built up
it's the
top with blood.
hourglass idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, like, the idea of hourglass, but it's also, just kinda used to be like, "You look so good." Like,
Yeah.
it's become so much more than that, but in this instance, yes, I am talking about Hunter's teeny tiny little waist,
Okay. Okay.
and how much I was so excited to watch that Shadow Trooper just haul himself up a building. Literally jumped up, pulled himself fully up by his fingertips. I was like, "Goddamn!" Yeah, so that's these episodes sucked and they were really rough and they were really good, but they were really rough, and those are the 2 things I will leave you guys with.
Don't worry,
Snatch
folks.
Hunter.
as scary as these villains are, they're still sexy and thirst-worthy. So, Kylo Ren lives on. All is well. Erin,
Yes.
because as we all know, no matter how bad they are, Erin can fix them.
Yes.
Thank you, Erin, so much for all this. To our fans, thank you so much. If you've not thought about becoming a member, please do so. It's only $5 a month, $55 a year, all the free stuff. You know the story. More importantly, though, or just as importantly, we want to hear from you. What do you think of this episode? What do you think about episodes to come? What are your predictions at the end of the show? We have already gotten some feedback, which we're going to talk about next week. Would love to keep getting more. All the ways to contact us are on the show notes, or if you go to theethicalpanda.com. So on behalf of myself and Erin, thank you all so much for coming. Stay classy, Corelia.
You lied to me.
I often do. It's okay. I'll tell you when you're older.
Oh, okay.
I just want to protect your innocent youth.
Didn't think there was more to that phrase, but okay.
I just kept going. All right, members, welcome back. So we did not get to hear, Erin, your dulcet tones talking about all the events of episode 9. What'd you think?
This requires another glass of wine.
Okay,
Damn.
I could only see a little bit of the liquid and it looked a little bit more amber, so I thought you were pouring yourself a shot of whiskey so you could talk about it.
Oh God, it's rosé.
Of course it is. Okay.
That would be crazy bonkers to just shoot whiskey right now. But no, it was great. So I wasn't on last week because I had a Comic-Con this past weekend. And I was just so stressed with preparing for everything. And then I did see a spoiler for the episode on Instagram before I got a chance to watch it. And I was like, fucking hell, of course the one episode I'm not there. Ventress rolls up. Like, are you kidding me? So I was a little bit rageful about that. And then I just didn't watch it for another like day and a half because I was mad. And then it was very late at night and I was pretty drunk after a rave and I went back to my room to change cosplays and I watched the episode and it was great.
Nice.
Lots of good stuff. I gotta say, just because Wet Hair Hunter did not make my dreams come true does not mean Wet Hair Ventress did not just fulfill everything within me. She is so fine. She is looking her best this episode. Like, if there is a Ventress I will cosplay, which that is on my list of like dream cosplays, is Ventress. I do really love this one. I was really obsessed with her hair. Like the whole character design right now is really slaying. I was excited to have her back. I kind of loved that she has kept her disdain for clones.
Yeah.
Like she kind of still just fucking hates them. And it when she's talking about like, okay, I didn't rewatch this episode. I rewatched the other two, but she was saying something about like, oh, like I'm taking it easy on you guys. Like this could be so much worse. Like I'm just trying to like keep you out of my way. Like, oh, I sent Omega off so we can like fight. Like, yeah, we're opposing, but I'm gonna like help protect this kid's like view of everybody.
Yeah.
Which is growth for Ventress, and it's very sweet. And I think it's a soft spot she's like developed due to her traumatic childhood and the way that she was brought up, and like losing so many different masters throughout such young years of her life. But yeah, I just love that she just was toying with them and she just like she's so over it. She's like it's just great. Because if we think back, I mean, Clone Wars Ventress did one of the most horrible things ever to happen to a clone, i.e. force pushed him onto her lightsaber, kissed him, and threw him on the ground.
Yeah.
Like
that was when Disney was still in there. She's an uber femme fatale. We're going to, haunt the dreams of 12-year-old boys phase, which they somewhat came out of, even if they never gave Ahsoka a full shirt. But yeah. Yeah, I thought that was incredible growth. And I thought the moment where, the Bad Batch is ready to kill that big creature that is threatening them, that's only there because they summoned it. And she's like, no, hold on, I got it. And she was able to like communicate with it and put it back. Because that kind of respect for another living creature is very much not Sith. And I really like where they're putting her because you're right. She always had that disdain for the clones.
Yeah.
She would flirt like hell with Obi-Wan. but like the clones were just cannon fodder, or people just to chew up and spit out.
Yeah.
And
Which
and
I
there's
will
still go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, I just will say, speaking about this monster, and you probably might have seen some discourse about this online, but yes, everything about her being in this show kind of retcons Dark Disciples, or at least raises a ton of question marks around
Mhm.
the book Dark Disciple. But in that book, speaking of a lack of
Oh yeah.
respect for living things, there is a giant monster that lives deep within the waters underneath Dathomir called the Sleeper. And it's been there for thousands and thousands of years. And it's a very important part of their like religious beliefs and rituals. And to fully pull Quinlan Voss to the dark side, Ventress has him kill it.
Yeah.
Like this thing that was so important to her people that, to her knowledge, she is now the last one alive. Like the Dathomir Night Sisters are dead, and
Yeah.
this meant so much to them. And she was in, even at that point, even at the end of the Clone Wars, where she is ostracized from the Sith. She's no longer working with Count Dooku. She believes a lot of his thoughts are wrong, but she still doesn't have that respect or care for living
Mhm.
things, you know? Like
Yeah. And
she
it's
just
worth
grabs a random snake and uses it to poison Voss and then kills it just because she can.
yeah. And it's worth
Like,
noting that the creature that they fight in this, that she helps to save, looks very much like the creature in that book is described.
it's very similar,
So,
yes.
yeah, I think that was entirely intentional. I think her making references to, I haven't spent all of my lives, is very
Mhm.
intentional. And I think, and this is again the kind of like coordination of stories that we're starting to see more and more of, the fact that in the Ahsoka show, we saw the, Night Sisters playing with death and doing some kind of resurrection-y stuff.
Mhm.
And, we didn't see any green smoke coming out of blonde Ventress, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if the way that she's still around is due to something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities, and I think if we just got her in this, it'd feel a little disappointing. But what I'm hearing, and again, who the hell knows if this is going to happen? There have been so many Star Wars projects that were in development and then got stopped. But I
Mhm.
think that this is going to launch some other project in which we will get more of Ventress's story, and we're probably, if we're not shown the events of Dark Disciple, although we know like they were filmed, they were animated in the past, at
They
least somewhat.
literally exist. They literally exist, and they
Yeah,
just won't
I
show us. Ugh.
I think we'll get that. Probably they're like wanting to remaster them and redo the animation because the style has just increased so much, and the technology and the budget has increased so much. But I think we are going to get more of Ventress's story, including in flashback some of the Dark Disciple story.
That would be amazing. I would love that. And
That's what I hope.
actually, speaking of, even if whatever project this is doesn't come to fruition, we can always hold on to the hope. Like, Tales of the Jedi still exists. We're still getting more seasons of that, and technically she
Mhm.
started as a Jedi.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
very
could use
true.
it to creatively tell us more about Ventress.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Or
that's a
they
great
could tell
point.
us about Saucy Tin,
Yeah, that's a
which
great
is
point. I hadn't
fine
thought of
too.
that. The last thing I want to say about last week's episode, and then you have last word, and then we'll close out. There was so much growth for Ventress, but also remember before Order 66, and then everything that happens after, Ventress probably has personally the highest body count of individual clones killed, except for maybe Grievous.
Mhm.
Like Dooku, I think rarely gets into like direct hand-to-hand combat against clones.
Yeah.
Um, so Ventress is definitely in the top three, maybe number one. And so for the Bad Batch also to come around to be able to work with her, and it being because it's not that they decide that they're ready to trust her, it's that Omega trusts her and they trust Omega.
Yeah.
And that again,
Yeah.
I just thought was such a beautiful way of showing how that had developed.
No, totally. I forgot about that piece where they were like, "She's a war criminal."
Yeah,
Like, we can't work with her. She killed people, which is true.
yeah.
Um,
She's got a body
but
count.
it is what it is. She certainly
It's the only
does.
time you can ask about someone's body count. We're literally talking about death. So
Oh
there we go.
god.
All right. Save
Um,
me. Say one last thing about the episode, and then let's get the hell out of here.
I don't know. I liked seeing how long Crosshair was able to take on Ventress.
Mhm.
Like, he lasted the longest, even though they all
Yeah.
totally got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
He came back the hardest, which I appreciate, and I feel
Yeah.
like I'm this is gonna be on this week's episodes, but, like, I'm so curious to see what happens next episode, especially between, like, Hunter and Crosshair, but mostly between Crosshair and himself. Like, I really wonder what that's gonna look like, and I think he might just go berserk mode.
Yeah. I think it's entirely possible. All right. Well, thank you, audience, so much. This has been a great conversation. You, the members, really make all these things possible. Thanks for being members. Thanks for listening. Peace out. And we're done.